Joe, thanks so much for being here on the Funky Werepig, and I'm sorry we're running late. That is going to be the last time I have nachos before an interview, I swear to God. So we've rapped many times before. I've had you on the radio show, but this time we get to do a face-to-face. It's a lot of pressure. Be calm. Be cool.
Very calm.
Cool. We were actually in a hotel here during Horrifying Weekend. And it's been a fun weekend so far. Lots of fans and books and everything like that. But I'm going to concentrate solely on you.
Well, I don't blame you. That's probably a good choice.
We're going to do this for like the next half hour. A couple things I got to mention right off the bat. One is, you know, it's well known you're from Texas.
Yep.
And I got to ask you, and I don't think we've ever covered this. You're known for, as a writer, of course, but as a martial artist. I mean, you're in the International Hall of Fame for martial arts and everything like that. We've actually been able to con you into a demonstration.
That's right. I will do that. Sure will. I've been doing martial arts since I was 11. This September will be 48 years. I actually started with my father in boxing and wrestling, and then moved into judo and things like that. So I've been doing a long time.
I was going to ask, how's a guy from Texas? Because that's all cowboys and stuff. That's,
well, a lot of cowboys take martial arts.
I never saw John Wayne do a roundhouse kick.
Well, John Wayne in from East Texas.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. He's a Yankee. What can I tell you? But on top of that, you know, in East Texas is not very cowboyish. Particularly, it has that element, but it's also southern. It's a different part of Texas. People think of it as like, you know, the desert and all. It's nothing like that. Nothing. It's trees and water. And it's right there by Louisiana. I mean, the borders are this close. I mean, it's about 90 miles, I think, roughly.
Okay.
And so it's a totally different culture, and it bleeds in Cajun and black and some from the Southwest. Certainly, there are Western elements, but it's more like farmers and lumber and chickens and that kind of thing.
Okay. Now with the martial arts stuff you do, you, like I said, you've been doing it for almost 50 years, and you still do it. You're mostly teaching now, you were saying,
right.
But with you keep in great shape. With a body like that, you could probably charge for sex. I mean, you do what you do.
Yeah. I've been paying them. Is that how that works?
So it's you've kept it going, and you've even invented your own form of it, right?
Well, I don't know if invented's right. I think that I have found my own form, because you don't invent stuff that's already there. You specialize in a way. Gradually, you start to find what works for you, and then as you teach, you start to develop a way of teaching other people to find what works for them.
Okay.
So although there is a system, and that there is a combination of techniques, they're variable to some extent, because somebody that says your size and somebody that's this size is going to need a different kind of techniques. We don't give black belts to children, for example.
Okay.
You know, there's all these children running around with black belts, and we just don't believe in that. We train you, but you have to be an adult. Our system's pure self-defense. There are some elements of it where some of my students have gone off and done boxing, have become, won boxing, little local boxing championships and things like that. Some have got into the mixed martial arts. So you can go in all kinds of directions with it, but the main specialty is self-defense.
Let's switch up a little bit now, because we're going to see that at the end of the interview. I want to definitely touch on some of the writing. Two quotes I'm going to pull from past interviews with you, if you don't mind me bringing them up again. One quote I remember you saying that was very memorable was, "Hiding a dead prostitute's not as hard as it seems."
No, it's not. It really isn't.
And then the second one was, correct me if I'm wrong, comic books were one of the most important things I've ever read. Let's talk about comic books.
That's the only real quote in there. But yes, comic books were, when I was growing up, the thing I learned to read on were comic books. Comic books were available to me, for one thing, because books were not that highly available. It wasn't like they didn't exist, but there was no bookstore in Mount Enterprise, Texas. There were occasionally books on the spin rack. That you could
remember
buy.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there were comic books, though, and there were like a couple of shelves, and to me, that was like a giant library. And I would go in every month waiting for the next issue of Superman or Batman or whichever character was at that time. And I had learned to read from comic books, and so I also established my ideas about how stories were told, to some extent, from comic books, at least originally. And one of the things that comic books did was that they combined genres, and they always did.
Yeah, they do.
And so really, that's where I got that, probably in my DNA, to combine all these genres. And the same way in martial arts, it affected the way I thought about martial arts, is that there's not one particular kind of thing that you have to stick to, that you can blend them, that you can do different things. And to me, that was exciting. And on top of that, they were in color.
Yeah. That's right. They well, I mean, and you're well known for that. We've talked about it a billion times and on a million shows that there is no box we can put you in. You know, you're not horror, you're not action, you're not noir, you're not whatever. You're just Lansdale.
No, I have a connection with the horror people in many ways. When I started up in science fiction, and I go to a lot of science fiction conventions. I'm a guest at those, but my science fiction output, if you want to call any of it science fiction, is very minimal. But I have a science fiction writer's heart. I have a detective writer's mind and a science fiction writer's heart. And then, I have the passion of like in horror and fantasy and all those things. And then I read all the mainstream stuff too, and it all comes together. But I've always driven by that science fiction heart, which is I think what comic books are, at least the ones I was reading as a kid, is that it makes you think that you can reach out beyond just the normal or just the average, that you can look for something beyond.
Well, the cool thing is, and I hope I don't embarrass you with this, but you're somebody that can go all the way across the board. For instance, I mean, I love your novels, and we're going to be talking about Hat and Leonard in just a second. I love all your short stories and everything. My wife is a huge Bubba-Ho-Tep fan. And my kids love Batman the Animated Series and all the things you do. So you hit all the way across the board. How cool is it for a guy like you that you grew up with the comic books and eventually you get to write Batman, Jonah Hex?
What's funny is that we were sitting at dinner the other night. It was Tom Monteleone and Brian Keene and Chet Williamson and myself. And I think it was, I don't know if it was Brian or Tom, but one of them was saying, "Isn't this pretty cool? We grew up reading these comics and now we're writing them." It's not just a job. I mean, I did some stuff for DC was my place, and it's still my favorite. I did some stuff for DC, and I think, oh, that's great. I did some stuff for Marvel, and I liked Marvel. And then these new comic book companies that are like Dark Horse. And so you're part of the old past comics, and you're part of the modern wave of comics, And it's really amazing, and it's that full circle feel.
Can we take a break, Jez? Is that cool? We'll be right back after this with Mr. Joe Lansdale.
A thriller with echoes of William Faulkner and Harper Lee, classic American storytelling in its truest, darkest, and more affecting form. Joe Lansdale's novel, The Bottoms, is available from Vintage Books and most literary outlets.